Now, from the WMAL WinBet Studios, O'Connor and Company.
5:07 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Good Friday morning to you. Thanks so much for being a part of O'Connor and Company. Gotta tell you, you picked a good day. Not that you would miss any day. Coming up, 6:05, Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch. 6:35, Trevor Maddich joins us, Washington's football team analyst here on WMAL. Matt Brainerd joins us as well, 7:05. He's the organizer for Saturday's Justice for J6 rally in D.C. 7:35, Josh Krashour talking about the first gubernatorial debate between Terry McAuliffe and Glenn Youngkin last night. Also, Congresswoman Kat Kammick joining us on the program. Brett Baer as well. My name is Cam Edwards, editor at BearingArms.com, alongside Liz Sheld of American Greatness on this Friday morning. Good Friday, Liz.
Good Friday to you. Friday, yay.
Yay. And we, as I said, we've got a lot of guests. In fact, we're going to get started with a guest. And I will give this man a great deal of credit. I'm not sure if he got up early, if he hasn't even gone to bed yet, because he's out there on the West Coast. My good friend, Mr. Kurt Schlichter, is with us on the program. Good morning to you, Kurt.
Good morning, Cam. Good morning, Liz, two of my favorite people in the world.
Right back at ya.
Or I guess maybe good evening? I don't know. I mean, it's early where you are, buddy.
Well, look, I am starting the morning at 2:05 with you guys. I will close out the evening. Larry O'Connor's going to come over to my house and have a steak tonight.
Nice. That's nice. Well, I'm glad you got to hang out with the,
Day.
I was going to say, well, all right, well, have some steak for us. Enjoy the time out. I'll be finishing my evening off with another radio show that you folks can find out more about it on my Twitter feed, @Cam Edwards. Not going to talk about it here, but it's going to be a late night, so you guys might be even able to listen in later. You can spend the whole day with me virtually, Kurt. How about that?
That
Heaven.
is so hot.
All right, listen. Kurt, obviously a townhall.com senior columnist, trial attorney, retired infantry Army colonel. The new book is called The Split. Kurt is always working on at least one book, I think, and the latest is The Split, a work of fiction, perhaps a glimpse into our future. I'm curious, Kurt, there's so much to talk about right now, but, we're seeing a lot of pushback from the White House on the allegations that Joint Chief of Staff Chairman Mark Milley went around the president in talking to his Chinese counterparts after the election was over. We're hearing now that, listen, this was all on the up and up. The Secretary of Defense was aware of this. There were plenty of people on these calls. Where are you right now on this scandal regarding Mark Milley? Do you think that Bob Woodward and Bob Costa, do you think they got it right? Are they leaving out some critical information here in order to try to sell books? What's going on?
Here's how little I think of Mark Milley, who is the worst chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff in the history of Joint Chiefs of Staff. I believe Bob Woodward over him, and it's not. Okay, this obnoxious, outrageous act, which upends 250 years of civil-military relations, or would have if Milley already hadn't taken that and treated it like Ned Beatty on a canoe trip in Deliverance. It's entirely consistent with his failures. Now, like this guy, Milley stuns me, Cam, because as a young officer, he seemed to serve well and was brave. As a battalion commander, he's apparently very good. Somebody, I've talked to people who were in his battalion. He was a good battalion commander. He has proven the Peter principle. He is terrible as a 4-star general. He is appalling. He began with embracing fashionable nonsense like America's greatest threat is the weather, climate change. No, it's the Chinese, which apparently he likes a whole lot. Then he jumped into politics to trash Donald Trump during the Trump administration. Then, of course, he makes this call to the Chinese, which, no, that wasn't okay. That was exactly the opposite of okay. All the way to allowing the disaster in Afghanistan to proceed. A real successful, good, effective general would have taken all those stars off that World War II uniform that he wears to remind us of the time when we didn't lose wars, and thrown them on the Resolute desk and said, I will be no part of this idiocy. But of course he didn't do that, because what's important to him is being part of the in-crowd, part of the elite, part of the establishment. And that is the problem with the American senior military leadership. It is part of the elite and the establishment, which has failed at literally every single thing. Here's a quick quiz. Let's see if you can find an answer, because I can't. What is one institution that works? We used to think that it was the military. Nope. The military is just like all the rest. It's failed, and this is really bad.
Kurt, I have a question for you. My question is, or actually, I'd like to play a game with you. And the game, I call it stupidity or malicious. So do you think Milley and his ilk really believed that Donald Trump was going to, I don't know, invade China, nuke China? Do you find this credible? Are these people dumb, or do they know what they're doing, that they know they need to come up with a pretense? Because I'll be honest, I did not have nuke China on my Trump presidential bingo card at all.
Well, look, well, from their unbroken track record of failure, we can be pretty sure that they're going to be wrong about everything. But in this case, it's one of those things where you're conveniently wrong, and being wrong also allows you to do things that you want to do anyway. Look, who do you think leaked this to Bob Woodward? It was Milley, because he wanted to be a hero. Hey, Bob, I saved America by calling the damn Chinese communists and warning them I'm not going to let Donald Trump do something that absolutely no one thinks he's going to do. Oh, and he actually expected, and he got it to some extent, to be praised for this. Now, of course, the Joy Reids and the Joe Scarboroughs don't like it. I mean, but of course, you take both military leadership and intern management with a grain of salt when it comes to Joe Scarborough. But it's just, I mean, he thought this is going to make me a hero, and he's going to end up on like the Raytheon board or something.
Or get a chair. He'll get a tenured chair at a university or something. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah. He's from Princeton. I keep hearing how he's from Princeton, as if going to the Ivy League means anything other than being a woke halfwit who has chosen his own pronouns. This guy is terrible on every level. I just look at this guy, and he perfectly encapsulates the total failure of the people who think they are better than us.
Well, listen, this show represents the total success of people who, work together, Kurt. So I tell you what, I'm going to interject here for just 1 second. You stick around, but right now it is 5:15 on W. Welcome back here to O'Connor and Company. We are joined by Kurt Schlichter, senior columnist at Town Hall, trial lawyer extraordinaire, author, sculptor, painter, explorer.
Renaissance man.
Right? I don't know, polymath. Kurt, thanks again for being
dancer.
We can and a pretty darn good karaoke singer as well.
Oh dear gosh, let's not go down that road.
So listen, one of the headlines I saw last night, right before I went to bed, was out your way, Mercury News up in the Bay Area of California. Here's the headline: Governor Newsom abolishes single-family zoning in California, because he signed this bill, SB 9, which allows up to 4 units on what are now single-family lots throughout California. This is something that obviously Newsom waited until after the recall election to do. I got to ask you, how concerned are you? I mean, not like California's been all that moderate over the past year or so, but how concerned are you, Kurt, that Newsom easily surviving this recall election attempt is going to empower him and other Democrats to just go full socialist over the next few months there in California?
Well, how would I know the difference? I mean, yeah. But first of all, I'm a blue state trial lawyer. I live in a town by the beach. Do you think they're going to let that nonsense happen in my town? No, that's for everybody else. That's not for the my neighbors who are primarily Trader Joe's screw top Chardonnay swilling wine women whose liberal husbands can't satisfy them sexually and try and find some sort of relief by reading Ibram Kendi books to fill up a void in their soul and their shattered, unused libidos. No, this is yet another example of the feudalism that is California. And this is what they want for the rest of the country. And it's a wonderful cautionary example.
I am so proud to say that I no longer live in California, that I used to live in California, and then I left California. And I think I just want to throw that out there to the universe. But, Kurt, do you think that this is going to get worse to the point where there is an actual pushback? Do you think that the Democrats always overreach? You know, they overinterpret election results, that they have a mandate and they go full steam. Do you think that Newsom is going to go too far finally, and then there's going to be an actual revolt? Or do you just think the state is full of people that are down with this?
Well, look, there's no hitting bottom for socialism. It's like in Venezuela, at the point where people are eating the zebras in the zoo, you would think that people who were actually concerned about anything other than their own power might go, I think we're on the wrong path. I think, they're chewing on Dumbo. Maybe we want to make a change. Nah, let's keep our power. It's all about power. The thing is, everybody talks about people moving out of California to other states. It's the conservatives moving. I had a friend of mine, a veteran, a former cop, calls me yesterday. Kurt, I'm moving. I'm going to Florida. I'm done. And just a few weeks ago, another right-wing guy goes, I'm out of here. Now, I'm going to stay because California is designed for me. I am a trial lawyer in California. They back trucks up and pour money on my driveway because California. Look, California is designed to make people like me happy, and you got AOC, agitating in the to pass the state and local tax deduction thing to actually cut my taxes more. If you smoke or vape, you got to put in some money, but if you pay a ton of taxes to the state of California, we're going to let you deduct those. So for me, it's like everything's groovy. But I am part of, essentially I'm the guy going to party at Versailles every weekend. And out beyond that, there are a bunch of people, sharpening up the guillotine. I just hope that they, don't decide to take me along when the chopping starts.
I hope you're wearing a mask at Versailles, Kurt, because
I
don't
wear
trouble.
How about pantaloons?
I don't wear mouth thongs. Pantaloons. Like
breeches, I guess they would be, right? Exactly. Have you thought about using some of that money that they keep throwing onto your driveway to buy some sort of, vacation home in Texas or West Virginia or some other red state? So you maintain residency in California?
You can't find a pad, man. There's no place to buy.
Oh, I know plenty of realtors in red states, buddy. We can
Lots
get
of
you set up
land
with
in
that.
Texas for you, Kurt.
Right?
Yeah, but I don't want to be out, I don't want my neighbor to be like a cow. Okay.
You'll
Hey,
get
listen,
there.
as somebody who has several cows for neighbors, I can tell you they make pretty good neighbors.
Yep.
You're never going to call your HOA, Kurt. No
Sam,
cow is ever going to get you in trouble for, not mowing your lawn or something like that. Listen,
Well,
I tell you what.
I know some pretty evil cows. Look, I've been to your, I've been to your farm, and I spent 27 years in the Army. I don't go any place where there's no one bringing me drinks.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. You can hire interns for that too. All right. I tell you what. We are talking with our friend.
Mortality rate.
We are talking with our friend Kurt Schlichter here, and we are going to take a quick time out, but we'll be back with more. It's 5:23 here on WMAL.
Now, from the WMAL WinBet Studios, O'Connor and Company.
5:37 here on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Coming up 6:05, Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch. 6:35, Trevor Maddich joins us talking about a stunning win for the Washington football team last night. Matt Brainerd, the organizer of Saturday's Justice for J6 rally, join us at 7:05. 7:35, Josh Krashour, senior national political columnist at National Journal, breaking down last night's gubernatorial debate between Youngkin and McAuliffe. Also, Congresswoman Kat Kammick joining us in the 8 o'clock hour, along with Brett Baer, anchor of Special Report at Fox News Channel. My name is Cam Edwards. I'm the editor at BearingArms.com, in for Larry O'Connor today, alongside my friend Liz Sheld of American Greatness. So glad to be getting a chance to hang out with you on this Friday, Liz.
Yes, it's great to be here, and it's great that the weekend is upon us.
Yes, I'm very excited about the weekend. You know, you get that nice 3-day weekend for a Labor Day holiday, and then all of a sudden the 5-day work week just...
It hurts.
It does.
Really hurt. It leaves
really
a mark,
does.
as we say.
Well, I tell you what, something else that leaves a mark. Indictments. Those can leave a sting. Those can have a lasting impression. And a federal grand jury yesterday indicting attorney Michael Sussman on a charge of lying to the FBI during the 2016. This is part of the Durham investigation. This is actually the second indictment brought by John Durham, who's been investigating the FBI's probe into alleged Russian interference. This particular indictment, Liz, says that Sussman, who was an attorney at Perkins Coie with ties to the Democratic Party, misrepresented who he was working for when he presented evidence to the FBI in 2016 of a link between the Trump organization and the Russian financial company Alpha Bank, a link, by the way, that did not pan out. But prosecutors in Durham's office said that Sussman falsely claimed to investigators at the time that he was not acting on behalf of any client when he was actually representing Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign, as well as a, quote, unnamed tech executive.
Durham. God, that name sounds familiar. I don't know. I know I've heard it somewhere. Was he in a rock band? Okay, So yes, this news came out yesterday, and it came out because the statute of limitations is coming to an end, and they have to bring charges, or else it's game over, and Sussman would get off scot-free. So yes, this is good news. My question is this all you got? Is this all you got? Just this one guy? And I think another question, and I know Tom Fitton, who is coming up shortly, will maybe be able to answer, but do you think the FBI didn't know that this guy was connected to Perkins Coie, the Democrat campaign law firm, and the Hillary Clinton campaign law firm? I don't know. I find that kind of hard to believe, to be honest.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I am looking forward to talking with Mr. Fitton about this coming up in a little bit. Chuck Ross from the Daily Caller had a little tweet thread on this indictment, and he notes as well, he says that as if it couldn't get worse for Franklin Foer, the Durham indictment says that he, reporter number 2 is how he's identified, forwarded a rough draft of an article back on October 31st, 2016, about Alpha Bank to someone at Fusion GPS. This is, again, part of the indictment materials. Ross says this suggests that Durham has the emails of either for Fusion GPS or both. More than likely, he hasn't sought out journalist email, so it's probably Fusion. And he says this guy, Franklin Foer, got worked like a fiddle by the Clinton operatives, yet he's also failed upwards in this industry. So, it does sound like there are still attempts to try to, tie some of these threads together, Liz. But it sounds like you aren't exactly convinced that we are going to see other names before the statute of limitations.
I'm not, actually, because this has been going on for a really long time. And a lot of people, crowdsource, really, you can find people on Twitter talking about this or putting out information, going through different documents. And then also a lot of reporters on the right that have picked up on a lot of things, and it's years ago, and yet we're still here. I mean, there were people who figured out what was going on pretty early in the Russia hoax, the Russia collusion hoax. But we're still 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. How long is this going to take? Because again, there are statute of limitations to consider. So,
right.
I do want to say that I think that there's like a business model of the FBI to use the media to its advantage. And that was really confirmed when we saw the Struck Page text come out, and these two FBI, the it couple at the FBI, were talking about, oh, this story came out, go read it, or these were the reporters that they were leaking to. So it just seems like this is the FBI is much more focused on PR and their image, and they are in, I don't know, crime fighting.
Again, this is something that we're going to talk about with Tom Fitton and Brett Baer coming up a little bit later on in the program, because I would love to disagree with you, Liz, but you're right. That is the impression that I think a lot of Americans have, and for good reason, because this is what we're seeing here from the FBI.
Well, there was
not
so
only
much
with
circularity, especially in some of the Mueller report, that we saw how circular things are, that the FBI would leak information to reporters would write a story, and then the FBI would use the reporter's story as justification for taking legal action against some of these characters. So that happened over and over again, and that's really not how the system is supposed to work.
It is not. I tell you what, though, this is how this system is supposed to work. We get to 5:43, and we take a little break, and we do some business, and we come back in just a minute here on O'Connor and Company. So, is Joe Biden all right, Liz? He seems to have this. He's got a cough. This is earlier this week at the recall rally for Gavin Newsom. This is the president speaking. This is cut 2.
You either keep Gavin Newsom as your governor, or you'll get Donald Trump.
And then that wasn't just one cough. We've got to cut 3 as well.
And Gavin, you have a governor who shares the state's values.
And then again on Thursday, the president was at the White House giving a speech, and that cough was back again. Had to pause several times to clear his throat. And NBC News' Kelly O'Donnell actually brought this up. This wasn't even like, Peter Ducey of Fox saying, what's going on with the president's cough? This was NBC. Said many of us were in the East Room watching the president. We've seen him on many occasions where he had a repeated cough. What's the situation with that cough? And is it a concern? She asked of Jen Psaki, who, of course, look, President Biden could be, actually like bleeding from a brain hemorrhage, and Psaki would say, everything's fine. Everything's great. He's in perfect health. And that's exactly what Jen Psaki said. It's not a concern. We have a doctor who travels with him, obviously, who checks in if it's ever warranted, and certainly that continues to be the case, as it has been since the beginning of the presidency. O'Donnell actually followed up, Liz, and wondered, so why is he coughing so frequently? And we've just been told, sometimes you just need to clear your throat, have a little light cold. It's nothing important. Quit talking about it.
Look, it's not like, excuse me, that there's a deadly pandemic raging through the country, and, he's an older citizen. I don't think that we'd ever get a straight answer out of Jen Psaki or the White House. I think something is obviously up. It's not good. It's not normal to be coughing. Maybe it is just a cold. I recommend zinc lozenges. They're very effective. I take a lot of. I love zinc lozenges. They're very helpful. But I like to think, what would happen if this were Trump? That's something I always play in my mind. If Trump, do you remember? Who could forget the greatest press conference ever, which was when the doctor, Ronnie Jackson, who I believe is now a sitting congressman, he got up and gave a press conference about Trump's first physical, and that thing went on for 2 hours with in-depth questions, deconstruction, interpretation about the health. And so, but Biden's coughing, it may have gotten some mainstream media attention, but that if Trump had coughed like that, there would be a theme song, it'd be 24-hour coverage, Coughgate, the whole tortilla or whatever. So, yeah, it's amazing.
I suspect that you're right about that. We probably would, have special graphics on MSNBC, and there'd be like a whole primetime special. But you're right. Again, for Biden, you get a couple of questions from NBC. Is there anything to worry about? During the presidential campaign, Biden's doctor, Kevin O'Connor, had told the Wall Street Journal that Biden is fit to serve as president, but noted that he was being treated for high cholesterol, acid reflux, and seasonal allergies. And his doctor said that acid reflux, quote, often forces him to clear his throat.
Okay, yeah, no. No. I'm sorry. Sometimes I have acid reflux. My significant other always has acid reflux and is not involved coughing. So this is rare or unusual. No. I'm sorry.
You don't buy it.
I do not buy that.
You're an
also
acid
apple cider
reflux
vinegar
skeptic.
helps.
What, does that work with acid reflux?
It does. So I would suggest that, and zinc. And the vaccine, I'm just kidding. Sorry. But I don't believe, I'm sorry. I'm skeptical. So, and I don't trust the White House, to be honest with you. So I just don't think anything.
Well,
that's true.
I think that's my biggest issue is I just don't trust anything that comes out of the White House communications office, whether it's, Jen Psaki or frankly, even the president himself talking about this stuff. I will say that when I think about Joe Biden's health concerns, the cough is kind of secondary to his mental acuity.
Right.
For me.
It's not like this is the first, instance we've seen where we're calling into question Biden's health. He loses his train of thought. Apparently last week he just wandered away in the middle when his wife was speaking. That kind of was, the optics on that were not good. So there are other reasons to be curious. And of course, Biden is, I believe, the oldest president that we've ever had. So there is concerns about that.
Legitimate concerns. You're right. And I think not just because of what we have seen and heard from the president, but as you say, he was 78 years old when he was elected. You're right. That is the oldest elected president. We've had presidents who were older in office, but Joe Biden is the oldest elected president. And but again, we know we're not going to get any sort of straight answers from this administration. So I don't know. I feel kind of weird sometimes, because I am bothered by this. I am concerned, but like, how much time do you devote to this, knowing that the White House is not going to come clean if there were big issues? Right. And we're believing that the White House
the media is not going to go there either. It's just they're on the same team. They would work to cover something like that up. And I don't know what's wrong with Biden, but he does have a history of some health issues. Like, I think he has had several aneurysms. Is that correct? Do you remember? Or I can't, maybe that's another old politician. But I do think that that's an issue. It certainly was an issue for Trump. And really that's kind of my metric is the media treating the president the same no matter which party they're in? And I think the answer is no on this. And so I hope Biden's not sick. He travels around. That's not good. There's a lot of people around him. So you just don't want anyone to be sick. But no, I don't think we're going to be getting an answer. And it's just something to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, and Liz, like Liz says, zinc, Mr. President, zinc. All right, 5:53 here on WMAL.
Now, from the WMAL WinBet Studios, O'Connor and Company.
Good Friday to you. Thanks for being a part of O'Connor and Company here on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. 6:35, Trevor Maddich joins us talking about last night's game with the Washington football team. Matt Brainerd joins us, 7:05. He's the organizer for Saturday's Justice for J6 rally in D.C. 7:35, Josh Krashour of National Journal on the Virginia gubernatorial debate, first one last night. And 8:05, Congresswoman Kat Cammack joins us, Republican from Florida. 8:35, our friend Brett Baer, anchor of Special Report at Fox News Channel. My name is Cam Edwards, editor at BearingArms.com, in for Larry O'Connor today, alongside my friend Liz Sheld of American Greatness. Good Friday morning to you, Liz.
Good Friday morning back.
And good Friday morning as well to Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch, who joins us here on O'Connor and Company. Tom, thanks for hanging out with us this morning.
Oh, you're welcome. Good to be with you both, Cam and Liz.
And big news from the Durham investigation. We've got another indictment handed down. Grand jury on Thursday indicting former DOJ attorney Michael Sussman on a charge of lying to the FBI during the 2016 campaign. Now, he was out of the Justice Department at that time. He was an attorney at the firm Perkins Coie. In the indictment, Tom says that Sussman misrepresented who he was working for when he went to the FBI and said, look, you got to look into this Alpha Bank and the ties between Alpha Bank and the Trump organization. He said to investigators that he wasn't acting on behalf of any client, but they say, no, he's actually working for the Clinton campaign.
He sure was. He was also representing Democratic National Committee. And, it's just one charge of, lying to the FBI. You can't lie even if you're not under oath, and even if it's just during a meeting, if you're conveying information the way he was conveying to them. What's interesting is the allegation obviously is he lied, which is a big deal federally in terms of a crime. But the indictment lays out a scheme by the Clinton campaign, her lawyers, Sussman specifically. It looks like Mark Elias, who was the top lawyer for Clinton at the time, and these outside computer experts and researchers to smear Donald Trump. I mean, they made up this claim that a Russian bank was communicating with the Trump server. You may remember that story that was out there, and it was a lie. And the complaint lays out the fact they knew it was, quote, a red herring, that it wouldn't survive public scrutiny, but they concocted a white paper that, at least on the surface, plausibly might survive a look, but they knew underneath would never survive scrutiny. And they gave it to the FBI. So, in my view, if this is the start of additional indictments, or just the first of additional indictments of the campaign, people associated with the campaign, it'd be good. If it's the final act in terms of an indictment by Mr. Durham, then it will be a disappointment. But let's be clear here. The effort to take out Trump was part of a criminal conspiracy, it looks like, and it involved a crime, and that's confirmed, at least alleged, in this indictment. So that's what people need to take away from this. It was they lied about Trump. They knew they were lying, and they did it in a criminal way. This wasn't just political opposition that they hope would float in the media, and it's terrible and unethical, but maybe not the crime. But when you're pushing that crap with federal law enforcement, and the other dirty little secret, Cam and Liz, is that the FBI, they said, he should have told them he was working for the Clinton campaign. Well, that's probably true. On the other hand, maybe in defense of this lawyer, I mean, did anyone not think he wasn't working for the Clinton campaign? I mean, this is not, this didn't happen in a vacuum. They were targeting Trump. They were doing it with the Clinton campaign. And this one FBI official says, well, this specific meeting, they gave me false information. But the FBI was a willing co-conspirator here. And, the crimes are legion when you start talking about the government's involvement here and the Obama administration's involvement on the smearing and targeting of Trump.
Tom, I have two quick questions for you. First, do you think that the FBI did know that Sussman was had some involvement with the DNC and the Clinton campaign when he came to them? And second, do you think this is the end of it? You've been great about getting out information right from the start on the Russia collusion hoax. But as someone who has been so on top of it, do you think that this is it, that we're done, or do you think that there are other shoes to drop?
Well, the skeptic in me says that this may be just the final gasp of Durham. On the other hand, you read this indictment that goes on for 25 pages, and there's only one charge related to lying to the FBI. That why have all that additional material in there unless there were other charges and other individuals they were interested in charging? So we'll see. I can't tell you one way or another, but it strongly suggests that maybe more is coming. But we'll see. I mean, this meeting between the, I don't know about you guys, but if I had, we've been doing this work for a long time, and it never occurred to me that I had, if we have evidence of crimes, we could just get a meeting with the FBI General Counsel and just convey all that information, which goes to what, your question, Liz. I mean, this is the way Washington works. Sussman's a former DOJ official. He professionally knows Sussman, to Baker, who was the FBI general counsel at the time. And they have this meeting and, to convey this information. No one else really has access like that. And I think the FBI generally knew that the Clinton campaign, and I think the evidence is strong, that the Clinton campaign was doing this activity. I mean, look, the FBI was paying concurrently Christopher Steele, who wrote the dossier, based in part on what the Clinton campaign was telling him. The FBI was paying this guy the same time the Clinton campaign was paying him. I mean, who's fooling whom there?
Yeah. Well, okay. So we've only got about 30 seconds left here. I just want to raise a quote from Sussman's attorneys, Michael Bosworth, Sean Berkowitz. They said the special counsel appears to be using this indictment to advance a conspiracy theory that he has chosen not to actually charge. Which, again, it gets back to your point, Tom, of, okay, if this is the end of the indictments here, this is going to be disappointing. But could it be that he's chosen not to charge others yet? I guess is the $1 million question. How much longer do you think this probe continues?
Well, the criticism of special counsels is they're kind of hard to shut down, and they take on a life of their own. He's been going since April of 19. Defenders of the special counsel would say the probe was waylaid by COVID, and it was an emergency. So grand juries couldn't meet typically, and they couldn't get witnesses and do the work they typically be able to do. But we'll see. I don't know. Right. I'm hopeful, but not naive about it.
I completely understand.
Just remember, it was a takeaway. President Trump is a crime victim.
Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch, thank you so much for joining us on the program, sir. It is 6:15 here.
Washington's Mall, 105.9 FM, WMAL, where Washington comes to talk.
Well, the fences are coming back. Concrete barriers as well encircling the U.S. Capitol as security gets put in place ahead of the Justice for J6 rally, which is coming up. Let's see, that'll be tomorrow at noon Eastern time. We're going to talk with Matt Brainerd, who's the organizer of the Justice for J6 rally, coming up at 7:05 here on WMAL. But listen, I'm curious. I mean, the law enforcement presence is obviously going to be big. You've got folks who are, concerned, not necessarily about the organizers of this event, but they're concerned that folks might, be attracted to this rally to try to, I don't know, do something nefarious. Do you think that the media is freaking out over this for no reason?
I do, Cam. I do, because that's what the media does. Mm-hmm. They're there to freak out and turn up the heat on everything. Is there any evidence that there's going to be a problem at this event? Is there social media postings on Twitter, Facebook? A lot of the J6 stuff was coordinated through Facebook. Are they seeing that again? Is there any evidence there's going to be a problem, or is this just another show and display that they can put up to freak people out that there's a big threat and have them afraid of whoever it is that they're characterizing are going to show up here? The Trump supporters, Trump's white supremacy army, whatever it is. So I personally haven't seen anything on social media that suggests there's going to be, I don't know, another insurrection, whatever that might mean, or violence. I don't know. And there's protests in the city all the time. In D.C., that's what happens here. There are always protests about everything going on at any time. So are these protests treated the same way this one is? I don't know. So I'm skeptical.
I think the answer to that is no. And I do think that there's a bit of overreaction. I'm sure that these law enforcement types and the folks who are concerned would say, listen, we don't want a repeat of January 6th, so we're going to err on the side of caution. But as you said, and we'll talk with Matt Brainerd again about this at 7:05, I'm not aware of any specific threats, certainly not from the organizers. In fact, Matt Brainerd has said, look, we've got our guidelines. We don't want violence. That's not what we're here for. He says anybody that violates those guidelines, we just assume is there to cause trouble. He said, we'll alert the Capitol Police to them. We have our own diplomatic security team. And Brainerd himself has also said, look, we don't want anybody wearing pro-Trump gear or pro-Biden gear. He said this is not about politics. This is, quote, 100% about justice for J6 and not the election or any candidate. Now, here's my other question for you, Liz. I understand where Brainerd's coming from, but how do you police something like that?
I don't know. I think it is risky. I want to believe that people are smart enough to know that this isn't their chance to make a statement,
right?
Or think that there's not going to be very serious consequences to any display or attempt to make a statement like that. So it's always difficult when you do have an event like that, and it's also difficult when the microscope is on you, just waiting. Any little thing there are going to be reporters there. They're going to be looking for somebody with a shirt that has something on it they don't like, maybe a sign that says something that they don't like. So this is going to be, it's very tough to control all these people. And I don't know what kind of turnout is going to happen, but obviously the city is on guard, which means the stakes are high for anyone who does violate their rules.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, but before any of these unknowns are known, we do have the media, I think, encouraging folks to freak out about this. This is Ashley Allison from CNN talking about tomorrow's rally. This is Cut 11.
Ashley Allison, what do you think? Do you think there is an overthrow the government fetish, as Adam Kinzinger argues there?
Absolutely. There's a delusional fetish. There is just a disconnect with reality. We know Joe Biden won the election, and these folks are showing up because on January 6th, there was a group of people who wanted to overthrow our government and did not believe what actually voters decided to do. And then they're coming back on Saturday to make the point a second time. This is not the first time a rally has a reunion, so to speak. It happened when Charlottesville, neo-Nazis marched in the street and they came back to unite the right. But the thing that is so disgusting to me is the same Republicans who will not condemn Saturday's attendees or the rally are the same ones blasting the Biden administration about Afghanistan. And when I look at the people who come on Saturday, I draw very close parallels to the Taliban. They are people who don't have respect for democracy. They are people who don't have respect for diverging ideas. And that is what people on January 6th did for, and that is what people who will come on Saturday.
Yeah, so that's how the media is representing this, right? I just think it's more like the Taliban coming to town here.
Look, who doesn't respect democracy? The person who's saying that these people shouldn't have a right to protest? No, that is what this woman is saying. And she's also mischaracterizing the entire purpose of the event. How are they going to take control, overthrow the government? Like, what's that? They're going to be out there holding signs and waving flags. Yeah. Well, again, we're going to discuss this with Matt Brainerd, the organizer of the Justice for J6 rally, coming up 7:05 here on WMAL. Right now, it is 6:23 on WMAL.
Now, from the WMAL WinBet Studios, O'Connor and Company.
Made it. It's Friday. The weekend is in sight. Thank you for kicking off your Friday here on O'Connor and Company on WMAO, where Washington comes to talk. Coming up, 7:05, Matt Brainerd. He's the organizer of Saturday's Justice for J6 rally. Also, 7:35, Josh Krashauer, senior national political columnist at National Journal, on Thursday night's gubernatorial debate between Glenn Youngkin and Terry McAuliffe in Grundy, Virginia. Congresswoman Kat Cammack of Florida joining us at 8:05, and at 8:30, Brett Baer, anchor of Special Report at Fox News Channel, will be spending some time with us here on O'Connor and Company. My name is Cam Edwards, in for Larry O'Connor today. I'm the editor at BearingArms.com. I am joined this morning by my friend Liz Sheld from American Greatness. Good Friday to you, Liz.
Good Friday and good morning.
Snap's good, hold down, kick. This one is up, and that one is good. Yeah. Washington wins 30-29. Wow.
Holy moly, what a game on a Thursday night. Trevor Maddich, WMAL's Washington football team analyst, with us to talk about the big game. Trevor, good morning.
Good morning, Cam. What a good morning it is. It seemed like it was going to be a miserable Washington football team morning, but the Giants just didn't want to win.
Yeah, I mean, this was 30-29, comes down to the last play of the game. I mean, this is the type of football game that you want to watch as long as your team comes out on the winning side here. This was an incredible comeback. And, I mean, even late in the fourth quarter, it really looked, as you said, like the Giants were going to pull this out.
Well, it did. I mean, with 6 minutes to go, the Giants throw a deep pass down the middle. Washington busts the coverage, so the receiver is wide open, and it hits him in the hands. Nobody within 15 yards of him, and he drops it. They end up settling for a field goal on that drive. And then at the end of it, talk about Giants' mistakes, Taylor Heineke led a magnificent 50-yard drive to set up for the potential game-winning field goal in the final minute. It was wonderful. And they set up Washington for the field goal, 48 yards, miss it. But wait, there's a flag down. The Giants jumped off sides. So with no time on the clock, literally zeros on the clock, the officials moved the ball 5 yards closer. Washington gets to kick it again, and this time Dustin Hopkins nails it for the game-winning field goal with no time on the clock at the snap. And so I tell you, the Giants, it was for New York fans, this is the kind of utter misery that they've become accustomed to. But for Washington fans, they see so many great plays. They see so much effort on the point of their part of their team, even though they made a lot of mistakes. And they kept fighting. They never quit. So that when the door opened, they were able to walk through it. I tell you what, it was an exciting finish to a game.
It really was. And let's talk about Taylor Heineke for a second here. 34 for 46, 336 yards, 2 touchdowns. That last drive, 4 of 6. I mean, Heineke, look, he wasn't perfect, but he was impressive last night, Trevor.
Yeah, he knew where to go, Cam, with the ball. And he went after Terry McLaurin, his best receiver, a lot. I mean, McLaurin had more catches than all the other wide receivers combined on the team. So you know that Heineke knew where to go. But there's so much more energy with this offense when he's on the field. There's a professional football charisma about him when it's game day. And his teammates could see that right off the bat. I mean, the Buccaneers could see it last year in the playoff game when he fought Tom Brady to a standstill, and the Buccaneers only won by 8 points on the way to their Super Bowl championship. So Heineke, there's something about him, and he's not considered to be a long-term starter in the NFL, but every time he gets a chance, he sure looks like one, doesn't he?
He really does. Speaking of Tom Brady, by the way, I got to ask you this. Do you see Tom Brady says he could see himself playing at age 50?
Why not? Of all people, why not? Right?
Right.
I mean, I don't think he hasn't put anything in his body that's not approved by organic, holistic practitioners, for decades. So he is the absolute model of how to do it. And I think that Heineke can actually learn some things from him. And it's not that Heineke plays like Brady. He can't, because Brady can't run like Heineke can. But what he can learn from Brady and saw firsthand in that playoff game is that knowing what the defense is doing is going to help you to be successful. And that's one of the things that we see Heineke do. That's one of the reasons he's succeeding so far. He's not just a mobile quarterback who runs around until he sees a guy wearing a helmet that he recognizes and then stops and throws it to him. He's recognizing what's happening, and he's only started a couple of games in his entire career. And so I think they should stay with Heineke over Fitzpatrick when Fitzpatrick comes back.
Wow.
Because right now they're both playing pretty well, right? But Heineke is nowhere near his ceiling. And Fitzpatrick, doesn't have a whole lot more headroom to go. Now he'll have a month and a half to work on it before Fitzpatrick can come back, so a lot of water will go into that bridge before they make a decision. But Heineke's making a quarterback controversy.
All right, Trevor. Listen, man, it's great to be to actually have a quarterback controversy over who's going to be better. Not like, all right, who do we have to put in? So that's some good news for the Washington football team. Appreciate the analysis, sir. Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks, Ken. You too.
Trevor Matt is WMAL's Washington football team analyst. Join us again. A 30-29 victory on Thursday night over the New York Giants. It is 6:43 here on WMAL. Election Day is today in Virginia. Kind of. Early voting starts today. The election day itself is November the 2nd, but you can start casting your ballot today. And last night, Thursday, Terry McAuliffe, Glenn Youngkin facing off in the first of two gubernatorial debates. This one held at the Appalachian School of Law in Grundy, Virginia, in the southwest part of the state. We're going to talk with Josh Krashow about this at 7:35. And I did watch the entire debate last night, Liz. Which was only an hour, so it wasn't that long. But I watched every second of it. And I have to say, look, first of all, as a Second Amendment guy, I was disappointed that issue did not come up at all. Glenn Youngkin did not hit Terry McAuliffe for his support for gun control, didn't try to go after McAuliffe for Michael Bloomberg getting involved, spending about $1.8 million trying to elect anti-gun Democrats in Virginia this session. Didn't even, at one point, McAuliffe, actually at several points, McAuliffe kept talking about how Virginia had the lowest crime rate in the country when he was governor. And I kept waiting for Glenn Youngkin to say, well, if that's the case, then why do you want to take so many guns away? Why do you want to make it harder for people to exercise their rights? If we've got, the lowest crime rate in the country, and we have pretty good gun laws, we've got a lot of legal gun owners, why are you going after their Second Amendment rights? But Youngkin did not do that, unfortunately. I think that was a missed opportunity.
Oh, absolutely a missed opportunity. There's a very strong gun community in Virginia. And, outside of the bedroom communities of Washington, D.C., I call the rest of the state real Virginia. I mean, these are people that live in a rural area. Having a firearm, having a rifle is not unusual because, it is a rural area or more spread out. There's wildlife. And so there's such a strong Second Amendment support here. I think you're right. It absolutely was a missed opportunity and a real important one because gun owners are very enthusiastic about their issue, probably the most enthusiastic among the political cohorts that you can find. And that needs to be, Youngkin needs to really use that to move against McAuliffe.
Yeah, and, last time I was sitting in for Larry, actually, we had Glenn Youngkin on the program, and I asked him, why did you not fill out your NRA candidate questionnaire? Because the NRA did not endorse Glenn Youngkin because he didn't fill out his campaign survey. And he said, we didn't fill out anybody's survey. We're not, doing that this time around. But I think I just got a mailer that talks about Jason Miyares, talks about Winsome Sears, from the NRA, but doesn't mention Glenn Youngkin. So I think that Youngkin does need to do a little bit more to get the word out and to get the base of support of gun owners. I think they're there. I don't think they're going to go vote for Terry McAuliffe, but I think that they, could probably use a little prompting to go out, to get involved at that grassroots level, to do the door knocking, to engage in the get out the vote efforts. Instead, last night you had a lot of questions about the economy, you had a lot of questions about abortion, as well as COVID mandates. That was another big topic in Thursday night's debate. This is Susan Page asking Glenn Youngkin about vaccine mandates. This is Cut 18.
Would you challenge the constitutionality of Biden's mandates in court?
Yeah, I don't believe that President Biden has the authority to dictate to everyone that we have to take the vaccine.
Meanwhile, Terry McAuliffe, he's all on board. This is Cut 19.
I want everybody vaccinated. I've called for employers to mandate it for their employees. I've called for everyone who works in a hospital to be vaccinated.
Yeah. And, obviously a debate format is not a great way to get into, serious substantive debate here. But this is one of the issues, Liz, that I think Terry McAuliffe doesn't really want to talk about. Look, I'm vaccinated. I am, pro-vaccine. I think people should get the vaccine. But on the other hand, we're already seeing now when hospitals say to all of their staff, you've got to get vaccinated. Some of that staff says, well, no, I'm going to quit my job.
Yeah, that's a real problem to keep in mind because the people who really pay the price are not only the nurses who were the heroes just a year ago and everyone was clapping for them and as they risked their lives to take care of patients. But the patients are the real victim because we already kind of have always had a bit of a nursing shortage. And now you're having nurses and other workers at the hospital leave over this vaccine mandate. And a lot of them are older in the sense that they have tremendous institutional knowledge. You do not want to, in a life or death situation, your nurse to be someone who just got their nursing school diploma yesterday. I mean, you're really going to have a problem with the quality of care. So again, I'm sure McAuliffe is trying to avoid that. And I think Virginia right now, Northam etc., have been very careful about what they've done on COVID because they know this election is coming up and they don't want to rile people up. But I agree with you. I'm sure McAuliffe, as soon as this election's over, if McAuliffe should be the winner, we're going to get the jackboot to come down here.
Oh, I mean, he's already said he wants to make life difficult.
It's outrageous.
For those who don't, get the vaccine. Whereas Glenn Youngkin, by the way, pointed this out during the debate last night and said, look, I want Virginians to come together. I don't want, let's face this a fight, with a common front as opposed to trying to divide us and make life difficult for those who choose not to get the vaccine for one reason or another. Anyway, again, we're going to continue this conversation with the Just Crash Hour of National Journal. It was a fascinating debate last night in Grundy, Virginia. Right now it is 6:52. Well, while COVID came up during Thursday night's gubernatorial debate between Glenn Youngkin and Terry McAuliffe, this specific topic did not. In Virginia now, if you're vaccinated and you need to show proof of vaccination for whatever reason, you can get a QR code. So you can just keep this on your phone. You don't need an app. You don't need to carry around your paper vaccination card. It's just it's a QR code. Isn't this lovely and dystopian, Liz? This just it's beneficial. It's helpful, and it's a little Orwellian at the same time.
I think it's very creepy. I do, but we've been getting reports that the authorities are seizing counterfeit vaccine cards. So I guess this is their way around that. But I know that when I got vaccinated, I did have to sign a lot of papers that had to do with sending my information about getting vaccinated to the state of Virginia. And sure enough, I went to the state of Virginia's website and I looked myself up and I got emailed a QR code. And so now I guess I'm a full person here before the law and I can enjoy the freedoms that I'm promised in the Constitution. But yeah, I think that's the case for everybody. I do think that every state has some digital record of people's vaccinations.
Okay. See, I rarely leave the house, so this is hardly an issue.
Me too.
Although I will say, I took my wife to go see a stand-up comic last week, and we did have to show the proof of vaccination, which I did not realize when we bought our tickets, because my wife, we had a real discussion about whether or not we were even going to go, because she did not want to show her papers or have to show her papers, even though she's fully vaccinated. And I get it. I completely understand. So I'm not going to download my QR code because I think I'm going to try to avoid those situations where I'm asked to show my papers in the first place. But I suppose it's a good option. Oh, Liz is showing me her QR code. All right, citizen.
I'm a full person.
You are free to pass.
Thank you so much.
I don't know. I'm sure it's great for the convenience.
There's no look. The pretense is just all wrong. That there's some digital record and you have to show it, or your card, or whatever. It's the whole pretense.
Yeah. Stories like this just make me want to become Amish. I mean, I miss you guys because I don't think the Amish can actually fill in on the radio. But yeah, it's just creepy weird. All right. It is 6:58 here on WMAL.
Warner Brothers Pictures.
Fairfax. Thanks for listening in Fairfax and throughout the DMV to WMAL. Now, from the WMAL WinBet Studios, O'Connor and Company.
Happy Friday to you. Thanks so much for being a part of WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Coming up, 7:35, Josh Crash Hour. Join us. Senior national political columnist at National Journal. We'll talk about last night's gubernatorial debate between Glenn Youngkin and Terry McAuliffe down in Grundy, Virginia. Also, 8:05, Congresswoman Kat Kammack joining us from Florida. Brett Baer, anchor of Special Report on Fox News as well, coming up at 8:35. My name is Cam Edwards. I'm the editor at BearingArms.com. Glad to be sitting in for Mr. Larry O'Connor this morning. And I'm thrilled to be joined by my friend Liz Sheld of American Greatness. It is always so much fun getting a chance to hang out with you, Liz.
So true. Right back at you, Cam.
Well, listen, we have a lot of news to talk about. This weekend coming up in D.C., we have the Justice for J6 rally taking place. This is going to be at the U.S. Capitol between the 1st and 3rd Street, Northwest, Southwest, at noon on Saturday. The fencing has already gone up around the Capitol, around the Supreme Court. You've got law enforcement officials saying that they will have, quote, all hands on deck, even though we are not aware of any specific threat or anything of that nature. Matt Brainerd is the organizer of the Justice for J6 rally. Hopefully he'll be with us here in just a moment. We're hoping to speak with him about some of the media hype, I think, over this. And I think the media is hyping up the concern over what is going to take place here tomorrow, because Matt Brainerd, it sounds like Brainerd really wants to run a tight ship here, Liz. He has talked about how, I tell you what, I'm not going to put words in Matt Brainerd's mouth because we have him on the program right now. The organizer for the Justice for J6 rally, Matt Brainerd, is with us here on O'Connor & Company. Good Friday to you, Matt.
Good Friday to you as well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So I want to start off. I want you, if you can, to react to. I think this is indicative of some of the media commentary about a rally that has not yet taken place. This is CNN's Ashley Allison talking about this event coming up tomorrow.
But the thing that is so disgusting to me is the same Republicans who will not condemn Saturday's attendees or the rally are the same ones blasting the Biden administration about Afghanistan. And when I look at the people who come on Saturday, I draw very close parallels to the Taliban. They are people who don't have respect for democracy. They are people who don't have respect for diverging ideas.
Matt, do you consider yourself to be, very close to the Taliban, an American Taliban? And do you think those who attend will be that way?
CNN has been probably one of the worst perpetrators of disinformation about this rally. I need to make something very clear because this has been spread everywhere and it's wildly inaccurate. We completely condemn all of the violence that happened on January 6th. We're anti-violence in every way. We oppose it. We've never had violence at any of our rallies. We do not welcome it at all. And we believe that anybody that was engaged in violence on January 6th should be given a speedy trial, prosecuted, and locked away. Our focus are on the hundreds of Americans who were swept up in January 6th, who have not been charged or accused of committing any kind of violent acts or destruction of property, which is the vast majority of them. And they are being treated in a very disparate way from those who have historically behaved exactly the same way at the Capitol. When you had a mini insurrection at the Speaker's office led by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, where a bunch of activists violently entered and had a sit-in, they weren't turned into domestic terrorists. No one called that an insurrection. They were let out. Maybe they got a fine and released that day, $35 or $50. During the Kavanaugh hearings, when the Senate office buildings were stormed and there was trespassing, and when the hearings were continually interrupted by protesters shouting during the hearings, those protesters were arrested that day, given a $30 or $50 fine, and then released to go back into those same hearing rooms and interfere with government business yet again. These other individuals from January 6th, who I believe in many ways were well-meaning, trying to express their First Amendment rights, they're no different in their behavior. What's different is their political beliefs, and that's what makes them political prisoners, and that is what we are protesting on Saturday.
Matt, do you think that the media is hyping this up and fear-mongering and showing video of the fences that are getting put up so people are not focused on what you're actually protesting, and instead they're just afraid of the violence, so they don't have to consider things that, like, people are being held, they've been held for months, they're not charged with a violent crime, so that information doesn't get out, and instead people are just afraid of violence?
I think that for the political left in this country, to them January 6th was like Christmas, because you had a few knuckleheads doing very stupid things, very evil things, attacking police officers, and they were able to use that to smear an entire movement. They actually like violence from the right, because then they can sick the FBI on them and lock them away, and it's done with. But when you have a mass peaceful protest by the America First right, just like so many of the civil rights movements in this country and internationally historically, they can't quite handle that. They don't quite know how to counter that. So what do? They lie, they smear, they put up giant fences to intimidate people from coming. That's a historic MO of threatening the civil rights movement in this country. And make no mistake, this is about civil rights, where in the past it was about race and other protected classes. Today it is about political belief. and it is just as important, and it is the prime civil rights battle of our day.
You know, it's interesting, Matt. Rasmussen Reports conducted a survey. You used the phrase political prisoners a couple of minutes ago, and Rasmussen actually used that phrase as well in a poll. And they found 49% of respondents said that those who've been jailed in the connection with the January 6th riot are being held as, quote, political prisoners. 42% disagree with that. And Rasmussen found even 45% of Democrats who were surveyed agree that the more than 500 people arrested are political prisoners. Are you surprised to see that poll result? Do you think it's accurate? Is there bipartisan opposition to the way a lot of these individuals who were arrested have not been charged with crimes of violence, but have been arrested for merely taking part? Is there bipartisan opposition to how these folks are being treated?
Look, to your first question, I'm not surprised by it, but I am encouraged by it. This is a cause that Look Ahead America, my organization, has been leading on since January, when we first sent a letter to the Department of Justice demanding they drop charges against the non-violent offenders. We held a rally at the Department of Justice about 3 months ago. We held a rally at the prison. We've held 7 rallies across the country on this. We've got a big one at the Capitol on Saturday, and we have 17 rallies in state capitals across the country. And all of our activists all across the country have been working in their communities, in their social groups, and communicating with their federal legislators on this issue. So thanks to, I think, our work, and also the work of people like Julie Kelly, who's done phenomenal work on this over at American Greatness, the public's becoming more aware. And something I want to remind you is that you quoted CNN, but their audience is actually infinitesimal relative to the population of the country, relative to the nation's voting base. So just because the media is trying to portray this as some kind of insurrection 2.0, their voice isn't quite what it used to be, and we are reaching the people, and it's very encouraging.
Just real quick, because we're almost out of time here, but how many folks are you expecting tomorrow at the Capitol?
Well, I would say our original estimate of 700 was backed up by Department of Homeland Security. I have no idea how many people are going to come. Anybody in your audience, I would encourage them to come and learn some of the details at lookaheadamerica.org/rally. But this rally has also already been a success. We've gotten hundreds of media hits every day that make people curious about the cause we're standing up for. It's been unprecedented, the number of interviews that I've had to do and all my staff have done talking about this. So it's already been a success, given the amount of attention we've been able to bring to these political prisoners and their plight.
All right. Well, listen, Matt, I appreciate you coming on the program. I hope you guys have a peaceful and a successful rally tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, I got to say, this was a topic of conversation before we actually started O'Connor and Company this morning, as Liz Sheldon and I were speaking with producer Heather Hunter before the show began. Liz, you were really ticked off, and I think rightfully so, at the latest move from the Biden administration, deciding now not to distribute doses of the antibody treatment, right, where they're needed. Instead, we're going to be doing this with a, quote, equitable distribution, right? And so it doesn't matter if a state doesn't have a lot of COVID cases right now. They're going to get more of these antibodies, the monoclonal antibodies from the federal government. And then states like, I don't know, Mississippi or Florida or other states that where the COVID cases are really rising, they might actually see less of these antibodies being sent under this plan.
Yes, it was. I was very disturbed by this. A couple days ago, the Biden administration announced that the Health and Human Services Agency would seize control of Regeneron, which is the monoclonal antibody therapy for people who test positive for COVID. Now, normally what the states were doing was just ordering it from the suppliers. There's several different companies that manufacture it, and they would just call up in Florida or Texas, hello, can you send me this? And it would just be like a normal transaction. But now HHS has inserted itself in the middle, and they're claiming they want to make sure that everybody gets their fair share. But the companies are not running low. It's not as if they are almost running out and it needs to be preserved so everybody gets some. No, and we know that the virus surges in geographically. If you look at the map, you can see that it starts moving around. So some state, maybe Wyoming doesn't need it right now. Why shouldn't it go to Florida or Texas or Mississippi or Alabama? It makes no sense.
It doesn't make any sense unless you're looking at it from a political perspective.
Right.
right?
Exactly.
And I think, unfortunately, this is something that we're seeing here. Joe Biden and the Biden administration plays politics with everything.
Well, with Ron DeSantis, because Ron DeSantis has been handling the virus in Florida very differently than Joe Biden has been handling the virus. And Ron DeSantis came out very early and really pushed for people to get monoclonal antibody treatment who test positive for COVID because he doesn't want these people to die. It's a great therapy. And because he did that, a lot of people on the left and their satellite and their surrogates came out and attacked Ron DeSantis for pushing this, as if pushing this therapy would somehow dissuade people from getting vaccinated. I think that that's the pretense of it. But it certainly is political, and it just plays to people's suspicion that they are not getting the straight talk on the virus.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, right now, Florida goes through about 72,000 doses of these antibodies every week. According to CBS 12 in Florida, the state received 30,950 doses, according to numbers from the governor's office confirmed by the Department of Health. So they're getting less than half now of the antibodies that they were getting just a couple of weeks ago. And these monoclonal antibodies, by the way, that are being put to good use. It's not like they're just sitting in the freezer somewhere, right? They're getting this, they're giving them to patients. And this is, again, I think that this is going to backfire on the Biden administration. I really do. I know he wants to pick a fight with Ron DeSantis, but it's just so blatant.
This is the wrong fight.
What's going on here? Absolutely.
This is the wrong fight. This isn't some policy squabble between wonks. We're talking about life, death, and hospitalization and ventilators. It's not funny. This is a medical treatment.
Right. And that's the thing. This isn't, so to me, this is where Biden makes the mistake, because this isn't picking a fight with Ron DeSantis. This is picking a fight with COVID positive patients who now may not be able to get the monoclonal antibodies. And some of those folks, I know Joe Biden might not care if they're unvaccinated, right? Well, then that's what you get, what you deserve. But some of these folks actually are going to be vaccinated. Some of these folks are going to have done everything that the government told them to do from the get-go. But because they live in a red state, right, because their governor, is not going quietly along with everything that Joe Biden proposes, they're the ones who are going to be harmed by this decision from the Biden administration. And it's not just Florida. Right. Again, this is happening in a number of states. Primarily, though, we are seeing, the surge right now in red states. And a lot of experts say, look, it's coming to the blue states this fall.
Yeah, it's in
Delta
the South.
Is coming. Right.
If you look at a map, it's in the South. It's slowly creeping up. It's going to keep creeping up. We saw this pattern last year. So this isn't really, again, what bothers me is this is not a political issue. This is a health issue, and it's being politicized. And you're right that this isn't about Ron DeSantis. This is about somebody who's older, vaccinated, and has a lot and is immunocompromised. And that person might not be able to get the treatment that they need because of somewhat political squabble. This is terrible.
It is terrible. And the worst part about it is I don't think that they're going to reverse course no matter how bad and loud the objections get. It is 7:23 here on WMAL.
Week 1 may be over, but the season's just getting started at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. To kick off Week 2, DraftKings is giving all new customers a can't-miss offer. Bet just $1 on any football game this week and receive $200 in free bets instantly, no matter what. That's right. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving all new customers $200 in free bets instantly when they bet at least $1 on any football game. DraftKings is safe, reliable.
Now, from the WMAL WinBet Studios, O'Connor and Company.
Welcome to Friday. It is so good to be here, isn't it? Yes. Coming up on the program, where Washington comes to talk on WMAL. Congresswoman Kat Cammack of Florida joins us at 8:05, 8:35. Brett Baer, anchor special report at Fox News Channel, will be with us as well. My name is Cam Edwards. I'm the editor at BearingArms.com. Glad to be in for Larry O'Connor on this Friday morning, and glad to be sharing some time with my friend Liz Sheld from American Greatness. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you for having me, Cam.
It is always good to be able to hang out with you. And last night, well, first of all, the debate between Terry McAuliffe and Glenn Youngkin got underway, the first of two gubernatorial debates. Today, early voting begins in the state of Virginia. Here to talk about the debate, Josh Krashauer joins us from National Journal, senior national political columnist there. Josh, thank you for your time this morning.
Great to be with you guys.
So last night, we heard a lot of talk about COVID restrictions, COVID mandates, how Terry McAuliffe and Glenn Youngkin would handle the COVID pandemic going forward. This is Cut 21.
I have been a strong advocate for everyone to get the vaccine. I do believe that individuals should be allowed to make that decision on their own.
I am for mandating vaccinations for people who teach our children in school, for children who go in higher ed, hospitals, nursing homes.
Mr.
I
McCullough,
want you vaccinated.
There was there was a lot of talking over each other, but there was a pretty clear difference between the two candidates on this issue and several others, Josh.
Yeah, there were also some interesting nuances in their answers, if you listen carefully. Youngkin is airing an ad in Northern Virginia, pro-vaccine, urging people to get the vaccine, though he's now running and criticizing the Biden mandate, the scope of the mandates that Biden introduced a couple of weeks ago. You heard the McAuliffe answer also, where he's not saying he supports mandates for every employer in Virginia. He's focusing on schools and health facilities where support is highest for mandates, and there's plenty of precedent for vaccines to get for a teacher to work at a school, or even for students to be in public schools, and health facilities where the risk is much greater than the overall public. But he is toning in on those areas, knowing that the employer mandate requiring the one that Biden introduced a couple of weeks ago, forcing every company over 100 individuals to require their employees either to have a vaccine to work there, or to have regular testing at some point. That's much more politically controversial, and that's where maybe Youngkin goes on the attack against McAuliffe.
Josh, what would you say is the main driver of this race? Do you think it's COVID, how it's been handled, and what possible restrictions might come down the road? Or are there other issues you think that are driving people to the polls? The education, I know, has been a hot issue in some parts of Virginia. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, all the polls, there was a Monmouth poll of Virginia out last week. It came down to the economy, COVID, and you're right, education is the number 2 issue, according to that poll, in Virginia right now. And I actually am a little bit surprised that Youngkin hasn't gone more on the attack on, education curriculums, school openings, critical race theory, so to speak. That was a big part of certainly his primary message, and it's one that is part of his plank. He has a campaign policy agenda that deals deeply into that issue, but he hasn't gone on TV with any education-related ads, even though it's according to the poll, the second most important issue for Virginia voters. McAuliffe on that issue is talking about more school funding, but hasn't dealt with the more tricky issues that are dividing the Democratic Party over curriculum and also over school openings.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that Monmouth poll showed McAuliffe with a 5-point edge over Glenn Youngkin on education issues. Typically, Democrats you expect would have a much bigger advantage. Is that because of, you think, some of the educational issues we're talking about, and is some of that because of the weakness of Terry McAuliffe as a candidate?
Well, he hasn't touched any of the kind of hot button issues that certainly have driven conservative conversation, but are also, as a parent in Northern Virginia as well, this is not just a political issue, a partisan issue rather. It's one that you even have a lot of Democrats, a lot of moderates worried about the state of schools. I've talked to some folks in the Youngkin campaign, and they seem to be reticent to litigate the issue of education. That there's a reason you haven't seen a TV ad yet in the general election on education. They actually are playing a little defense because they think that the argument that that McAuliffe wants to fund schools and Youngkin's tax cuts may end up decreasing funding for schools. They're very sensitive to that issue, and they've been playing a little more defense than I would have expected on education. They have an opportunity to go on offense. Youngkin hasn't yet really taken that opportunity aggressively.
Yeah, no, and during the debate last night, McAuliffe repeatedly talked about Youngkin's plan would cause 43,000 teachers to become unemployed. Youngkin's response was, we're proposing the largest education budget in Virginia history, so the back and forth there. Josh, listen, I appreciate the insights, sir. Thank you so much for coming on the program. It's good talking with you today.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Josh Grashower joined us again with National Journal talking about the gubernatorial debate in Virginia last night. And early voting, once again, in the Old Dominion is now underway. It's 7:43 here on WMAL. Oh, yeah, we're going to be talking about the border coming up next hour. Congresswoman Kat Cammack joining us from Florida is passionate about the border crisis. Also, Brett Baird of Fox News knows a thing or two about this. In fact, I'd love to I cannot wait to get Brett's reaction to this because the FAA has imposed a temporary flight restriction over the city of Del Rio, Texas. This was imposed late Thursday. Now, Fox has been there, not only on the ground in Del Rio, but in the air in Del Rio, Texas, because they've been using drones to capture the images of thousands of migrants who are under a bridge. A lot of these folks are from Haiti. And the numbers in Del Rio are exploding. It was like 4,000 a couple of days ago, more than 8,000 yesterday. There were reports of a caravan of some 25,000 people that are headed to Del Rio, Texas. And the Biden administration clearly, Liz, they don't want these pictures. They don't want these images out there, right? As long as the pictures aren't there, then maybe people won't pay as much attention to what's going on at the border.
Well, the pictures that I saw circulating yesterday were so horrifying. I thought, wow, this is terrible. And then wouldn't you know it, later that day, there's an announcement, no more drones, no more footage. And it really does look like they're trying to hide something.
Yeah, the FAA said in a statement that the Border Patrol requested the temporary flight restriction due to drones interfering with law enforcement flights on the border. As with any temporary flight restriction, media is able to call the FAA to make requests to operate in the area. So on a case-by-case basis,
right,
you might be able to use drones, right? And
yeah,
so
that's going to happen. Right.
Yeah, I something tells me that the Fox drones are going to be denied.
Yeah, it's
right?
over. There's no more Fox drones.
Meanwhile, we'll see Rachel Maddow piloting her little drone there for MSNBC. Just actually, they wouldn't bother sending a drone to Del Rio.
No, nope. They're going to have the drones at the protest tomorrow because that's what they're interested in.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Well, Ted Cruz was in Del Rio on Thursday night. He called this restriction ridiculous. He says the drone footage started this morning. And people across the country were horrified. And I guess the political operatives at the Biden White House saw that and decided the last thing that they want is Fox News actually reporting on what's happening down here. He also said, he was talking to Sean Hannity, he said that the scene under the bridge was, quote, the most horrific thing I've ever seen. He said, right now as we're speaking, so this is last Thursday night, 10,503 people under this bridge. He says it is packed in as a massive humanity, the scope of it. Until you see it, it just goes on and on and on. Infants, little children, people struggling enormously. And by the way, we did have a similar situation at this very bridge during the Trump administration. And Liz, the media, it wasn't just Fox News reporting on this. Back then, the media really did pay attention because it was Trump's crisis and it was Trump's problem. Now that it's Biden's crisis,
it's
Biden's
disappeared.
Problem.
It's
right.
disappeared. Have we seen any headlines about the immigration crisis in the New York Times and the Washington Post, on CNN or MSNBC? No. Are the comedians making jokes about it? Remember, we heard about kids in cages. They were drinking out of toilets. AOC was crying in front of a fence that was really a parking lot. This got so much coverage during Trump, and it's worse now, and we're hearing absolutely nothing, and makes you think that these people really don't care about the issue at all. They just care about scoring political points.
I think that's right. And when you honestly, again, we've talked about this in terms of the COVID policy for the Biden administration with the rationing or the equitable distribution of monoclonal antibodies. When it comes to the crisis on the border, when it comes to the number of Americans and SIV holders who were left behind in Afghanistan, you can't help but get the feeling that individual citizens are disposable.
They're just props. You know what, Cam? It's these people and these issues are simply props to further the Democrats' policy goals and to gain political power. What about COVID? How many people are all smooshed together in these facilities under bridges? We're all masked up, locked up, can't go into a gym unless you're vaccinated, can't exercise. Karen's all over yelling at you about your face mask. And yet, on the other hand, We have people in close quarters in proximity to each other, inside government buildings, under bridges, and this is fine. Makes no sense.
Yeah, and it's not fine. Bill Malugin of Fox says, by the way, he's been down there at the border. He said, we've been covering the border nonstop for almost 7 months now. We use the drone constantly, and it's never been an issue, he said. So he said that Fox has reached out to the FAA to ask for clarification on why this flight restriction was implemented over the city of Del Rio, Texas. He said this was as of last night. We hadn't heard back. I wouldn't be waiting by the phone for that call there, Bill. But it's a 2-week-long flight restriction, temporary flight restriction over the international bridge in Del Rio, Texas, meaning that you won't get the Fox drone shots anymore because the Biden administration is they're addressing this crisis by managing the optics.
Oh,
that's how they're,
And they're doing it because they have accessories in the media who aren't pushing this. The media is going along. They're not covering it. They're not digging deeper. They're not standing outside watching buses or at the border publicizing any of this. They have accessories, and it allows them to just manage the optics.
Yeah, and frankly, they're not even doing that all that well. It's 7:53 here on WMAL.
WMAL salutes our listeners in Clarksburg. Thanks for listening in Clarksburg and throughout the DMV to WMAL. Now, from the WMAL WinBet Studios, O'Connor and Company.
Good Friday to you. Kind of gray out there right now, but it's going to be a pretty good weekend. Thanks so much for being a part of O'Connor and Company here on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. 8:35, Brett Baer, anchor of Special Report at Fox News, got to be with us on the program. My name is Cam Edwards, editor at BarronArms.com, sitting in for Larry today alongside Liz Sheld of American Greatness. Thanks for hanging out this morning, Liz.
Thanks for having me. It's always great to close my week up with a visit with you and with the audience and WMAL.
Absolutely. We've had some fantastic guests on the program as well, including right now, Congresswoman Kat Cammack joining us from Florida. Congresswoman, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Good morning. How are y'all doing?
We're doing okay, although I got to tell you, we're a little fired up right now. We were just talking about this new FAA restriction, a temporary flight restriction over the city of Del Rio, Texas, which just coincidentally, Congresswoman, came after Fox News flew its drone over this bridge in Del Rio where you have, according to Senator Ted Cruz, over 10,000 immigrants there who are under the bridge. They're basically stuck there. The Biden administration, once again, not able to handle the crisis on the border. What's your reaction to the fact that it certainly appears anyway as if the administration simply doesn't want these pictures being shown? They don't want the American people to know what's going on there.
Exactly. And last night I actually tweeted at the FAA asking for answers about why they grounded the drones for Fox News. Now, I have been getting videos and photos and text messages from Border Patrol agents there in Del Rio that are showing me the things that Fox News is reporting on. And it absolutely needs to be shown and seen. And it's clear that they're trying to fulfill a political agenda, that the Biden administration wants to keep the narrative going that there is no crisis. Come on, we all know there is. There is absolutely a crisis. And when you look at the 10,000 people that are sitting under that bridge waiting to be processed, and estimates of the Border Patrol agents there on the ground are telling me that it's going to be up to 20,000 of them by Sunday evening sitting there waiting to be processed. The majority of them are Haitians. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a crisis. This is a humanitarian crisis, a national security crisis. It is a real issue that we need to address. You've got over 140 different nationalities coming through our southwest border. We have the debacle in Afghanistan, and they're using all of this happening in Washington with the spending and the Biden and Bernie budgets to distract from the real crisis that's happening at our border. The national security threat is real, and we've got to get a handle on it now.
Hi, Congresswoman Liz here. Are you hearing from your other colleagues that they're also outraged by this? Because I'm remembering back during the Trump administration when the Park Service was attacked or questioned, letters were written, hearings were threatened over inauguration numbers, all sorts of oversight that was done by the Democrats. And I'm wondering, are any of your colleagues equally as concerned about the FAA's move yesterday?
Absolutely. We're in text messages and group chats with each other, and everyone just couldn't believe how awful the situation has really gotten. Multiples of us have been down to the border and seen firsthand for ourselves. But for the FAA to just unilaterally ground the drone, that's ridiculous. I mean, they're clearly out to try to cover up what is happening. They don't want the American people to see what's happening. So it's incumbent upon us as members of Congress to step up and really expose this administration and what they are doing. It is keeping our country at risk by having these open borders. Keep in mind, not one of these illegals coming across is being checked for COVID. It is actually part of the administration's protocol not to check their belongings in their bags. So it's only going to take one dirty bomb to be smuggled across very easily for something to really, really go wrong, more so than it already has. And keep in mind, taxpayers, we're paying for this at the end of the day. FEMA is reimbursing all these charities that are flying these illegals all across the country once they get through processing. This is a major national security risk, and it has all of us on the Republican side outraged. So there's going to be a lot of investigations that are going to be popping up. But more than that, there's going to be accountability. I don't know about you, but as an average citizen, I personally have been frustrated with the lack of consequences and follow-up and accountability for these bureaucrats, these lifelong politicians that break the law and bend the rules, and nothing ever happens to them. If you or I were to go out and do the things that they have done, man, they would have the book thrown at us. So I just want to see real, true consequences for those that have continued to break the law and really work to actively undermine our Constitution and our national security.
All right. Well, speaking of consequences, Congresswoman, there are going to be some serious consequences, not for the bureaucrats, not for the politicians, but unfortunately for maybe some of your constituents, the people of Florida, because the Biden administration has decided to change how the distribution of monoclonal antibodies is going to be handled. Instead of a need-based system, they want to now prioritize a, quote, equitable distribution, which means that the state of Florida received about half of the monoclonal antibodies that it has been receiving. They need about 72,000 doses per week. The Biden administration gave them about 31,000 doses this past week. Again, I'll ask you the same question. Is this Biden playing politics with a real crisis here?
I'm gonna step out and say yes. You saw that Biden said very publicly and did not mince words that he was going to make those governors pay. I can't think of any other form of retribution that would really hurt than to withhold life-saving treatment. And so while it is absolutely horrific to think that a sitting president would go so far as to deny treatment for COVID patients because he doesn't agree with the policies of that governor of that particular state, that's insane. But I do think that it is political retribution, and it will not stand. I spoke to a doctor yesterday who has been he's been treating patients, almost 600 of them, with this treatment. Only 2 of the 600 have had to go to the hospital after receiving the treatment because they didn't get the treatment in time. So it absolutely is saving lives. And this is just politics. We need to get back to real science, not political science. We need to be putting Americans first and stop this tit-for-tat nonsense that the Biden administration is engaging in. They are more intent on trying to make a political point than they are looking out for the best interests of the American people, and that's just shameful.
Do you know if there's any other way to get them, or is DeSantis and other governors of these states, are they just absolutely blocked out? I mean, is this like a done deal, or is there any challenges are there any challenges coming up the pipeline?
Well, it's interesting. That doctor that I was referencing, I was speaking to yesterday here in my own district. He was dealing previously directly with the company. He was dealing with Regeneron, and he received notice from Regeneron that they no longer would be taking direct orders, that HHS had stepped in. So my team immediately yesterday reached out to HHS demanding answers as to why all of a sudden they have prohibited Regeneron from selling directly to licensed physicians and hospital systems. So we're going to get to the bottom of it. I can't say if there's another way at this point in time because I need to do my due diligence in getting the answers of why they did this, why they have made it more difficult for people and entities to get their hands on this life-saving treatment. And then we'll come back and make sure that the world knows, was this truly a political stunt or was there a legitimate reason that HHS stepped in? I think that conversation needs to be had, and it will be had.
Congresswoman Kat Cammack, thank you so much for fighting the good fight. Thanks for spending some time with us this morning here on O'Connor and Company.
Hey, thank you guys so much. Have a great weekend.
You too. It is 8:15 here on WMAL. Traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives. Let's check in with Lisa Baden in the Edith Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
George Washington Parkway, we have some activity northbound at the Key Bridge. That's an accident in the left lane. It's already in a backup now from the 14th Street Bridge. And we had an accident on the ramp from the northbound George Washington Parkway to go on to the Beltway, but looks like they cleared that from the ramp. DC 295 northbound at Pennsylvania Avenue. Your delays begin at 695 to crash Pennsylvania Avenue. You'll have to stay to the right. Okay, wreck on Maryland Outer Loop after River Road. They just moved it to the right shoulder. Ta-da. Now from GarageDoorRepair.com, the WMAL Storm Watch 7 forecast.
Well, we've got some rain around today. Showers this morning, numerous afternoon thunderstorms popping up, high around 81, but the weekend looks pretty good. Tomorrow, sunshine and clouds, high around 85. Sunday, mostly sunny, highs in the low 80s. I'll take it. Right now, 72 degrees at Reagan National Airport, 816 here on WMAL.
Thinking about selling your home? Well, the Reynolds team has the right program for you. Cash offer, 100% of list price guarantee, or zero commission. Get the details and start packing. Visit DebbieHasTheBuyers.com. That's DebbieHasTheBuyers.com.
Mark Levin lights up the lines weeknights at 6 on Washington's Mall, WMAL, where Washington comes to talk.
Well, while the Biden administration is keeping thousands of potential immigrants detained in Del Rio, Texas, there under a bridge, they are moving forward with plans to resettle refugees from Afghanistan. Only they have this plan, Liz, where they apparently want to settle these Afghan refugees in swing states. Because, again, everything's political with the Biden administration, right? It's all about using whatever crisis to their maximum political advantage. So why not, put these Afghan refugees in some of these swing states?
Yeah, again, when we keep talking about the trust that people have in the government, giving them the straight story on COVID or giving them straight information about what's going on in Afghanistan. And here we have another example of the strategic deployment of a large refugee population, many of whom were not actually translators. I don't know. Do we have 100,000 translators in Afghanistan? I don't know. I don't think so. That are being brought here at the expense, I might add, of actual Americans, some of whom are still trapped over there and can't get out. So I'm not really sure who we put on these planes, but I am pretty sure it isn't 100,000 translators that were taken out.
No. I mean, well, look, what we know is that only about 10% of the refugees that were able to get out of Afghanistan were special immigration visa holders.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the vast majority of the Afghans who got out, well, it's a really good question. I don't think we know. They're the people who were lucky enough to make it to the airport and get on an airplane, make it through the checkpoints. But as to who they are, what their background is, are they a security risk? I don't think we know, but apparently the Biden administration is getting ready to rehouse about 4,500 of them in the state of Texas, about 1,200 in Virginia, about 1,300 in Maryland, only about 1,100 in the state of New York, but about 1,300 in the state of Michigan. These are the plans right now. Some 46 states are going to be home to the Afghan refugees. And again, it sure seems like a fair number of these refugees are going to be relocated to swing states. They were talking about this on Fox. Lawrence Jones and Karl Rove discussing the Biden administration's policy. This is Cut 25.
Now, y'all know Democrats never let a good crisis go to waste, even if they're caused by Joe Biden. The disaster in Afghanistan has resulted in a flood of refugees coming to America. So where are they going? According to Axios, thousands are headed for the battleground state that Democrats were desperate to win in 2020. How convenient, including Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, North Carolina, Florida, and my home state of Texas. Now, why would Biden want to send them there? And here's something funny. The guy in charge of this job, Joe Biden's buddy, the former governor of Delaware. And wouldn't you know it, out of the 37,000 refugees, only 30 are headed to his state. And none of them are going to Washington, D.C.
Yeah, 0 Afghan refugees slated to go to Washington, D.C. Also, Hawaii, South Dakota, West Virginia, and Wyoming so far not slated to receive anybody from the first group of evacuees from Afghanistan.
This is such a public safety issue because I've read a couple instances where some of the people that were brought over here as refugees have been previously deported from the U.S. for violent crimes. So you really have a public safety issue where people are going to be settled in communities. Do the communities know, if there's any safety, public safety issues? Mm-hmm. Very devious. And again, it just adds to the distrust that people already have to the government. But I think that's a reasonable thing to assume that these people are being resettled in politically strategic locations, just like the border was wide open and an invitation was to come to the United States after Biden won the presidency. I mean, you remember at one point there was a picture of a bunch of them, of these migrants at the border trying to get in with shirts that said, "Biden, please let us in." Mm-hmm. I mean, where did those come from? That's obviously a political tactic. That's a strategic political move.
Yeah. Well, Montana Congressman Matt Rosendale objecting to the idea of 75 Afghan refugees being resettled in Montana at the moment. He says, I warned that we could not use this administration's incompetence to justify flooding our communities with unvetted refugees. And he pointed out, he says, the traditional vetting process for these individuals is a 14-step procedure that takes well over a year. He said the mass evacuation of over 100,000 Afghan nationals in a matter of weeks has made the proper vetting of these individuals near impossible. It is 8:23 here on WMAL. Makes plans to resettle thousands anyway, of Afghan refugees. The big question is, what about the people who are still stuck in Afghanistan? You mentioned this, Liz Shell did just a moment ago, but we do still have Americans, and this is now the Biden State Department saying this, trapped at Mazar-e-Sharif Airport in Afghanistan, and the Taliban apparently are not playing ball, Liz. I mean, our new erstwhile partners in the region are apparently putting up roadblocks and are preventing some of these Americans from getting on these flights and preventing these flights from taking off, perhaps.
Wow. Nobody could have seen that coming. I mean, our partners in peace would not fulfill their obligations or their promises is a big surprise. But this is just part of a larger calamity that was the way